Good morning. Some familiar faces. Pastor William and Pastor Barry had preached the week and the week before, Ruth chapter 1, chapter 2, and now I'm on chapter 3, right? Yep. Chapter 3, if you have heard the last two sermons, right? It's like, chapter 3 actually is the climax, right? Chapter 1 started with a famine. And chapter 2, and then proceed to chapter 3, you can kind of see it becoming a family, right? And from funerals, three dead, right? Imagine starting a family, 3 deaths. But now you see a wedding coming. But somehow it's all in the plan of God, okay? First, Bible quiz. Now, if you know the answer, just raise your hands. You don't need to speak out, okay? I'll see how high the IQs you guys, okay? Boaz. We have a Boaz here, right? You have Boaz? You're Boaz, right? What kind of man was Boaz before he got married? Are you married, Boaz? Raise your hand if you know the answer. All right. Those who know the Bible well. Okay. Boaz was kind of a ruthless man. That's not the biblical answer. That's just the IQ answer. But the biblical answer, he was not ruthless at all. Actually, he was reputed as a very kind, a very generous man in chapter 2, right? So, but Boaz, I'm sure he was not as blessed, was not as happy before he met Ruth. And he became the ancestor of the Messiah, and kings came after him. So that was that blessing, the fulfillment, the choice that he has made when he decided to marry Ruth, right? So, chapter 3, everything was in God's sovereign plan. However, he allows human beings to participate in his plan. Think about it. It's pretty profound. You and I can be involved in his great and sovereign plan. Can you imagine that? It baffles my mind, right? Think about it. This is the story, chapter 3, okay? Now, chapter 3, Naomi actually presented an unusual request to Ruth, and she was willing to carry out, and it was affirmed by Boaz. You see, 3 parties involved: Naomi, Ruth, and Boaz, to make God's plan worked out. Can you imagine that? Now today, as we read this passage, I believe it tells us that God's blessings often process through different individuals, you and me. But depends how we act and how we react. Even very mundane, very practical stuff happens in our life. If we respond to God can make it good. Think about it. Let's have a look, okay? So I'll be sharing with 3 points today: Naomi's requisition, Ruth's reaction, and Boaz's recognition. And the 3 worked together. God's plan was revealed and worked out in history. Okay, have a look. Firstly, Naomi's requisition. What kind of request was that? We've read the passage before. Verse 1. I must find a home for you where you'll be well provided for. If you were Naomi, if you were Ruth, when you heard Naomi says these kind of things, what would you think? Don't I have a home? You're my mother-in-law. I have a home. We have a house. What do you mean by finding me a home? Right? Now, if we read chapter 1, they came back from Moab, and husband died, father-in-law died, every male in the family died, right? They came home, came to the land of Palestine, didn't know what would happen, but somehow met this guy in the field. She was able to glean. The guy was kind-hearted, supplied for the whole, most part of the year. The season, the gleaning season, was pretty well cared for. That's fine. But for Naomi, what about next year? What if this guy, Boaz, changes his mind? Right? The temporal needs are kind of solved. But what about the future? Future needs to be resolved. So in her mind, in her thoughts, is that, yes, I must find someone to look after you, Ruth. And in turn, I'm getting old. I need taken care of too. So that was a very practical stuff for Naomi to have this request. I can't go approach Boaz. I'm too old. But you're young. You're okay. According to biblical laws, you can be remarried. So go. So that was the first intention of Naomi's request. And then the second, go to this winnowing barley to him. He will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. What is that? When I first read that, I thought it was somehow it was harvest. People would be celebrating, would be drinking and eating, and it was a party. But look into it closer, you'll find it was not a party at all. It was more of a production plant, because they were working very hard because the harvest is here. They need to reap the harvest, and winnowing barley, it was something like this. It still happens in the Middle East countries, right? Or in India and Sri Lanka, all the barleys or wheat they have to be separated from the chaff. So the best thing, it was in the evening breeze at that time, when on the higher ground, when the wind comes in, and they would just throw the barley into the air, and the wind would just blow off the chaffs, and the wheat, the barley would just sit on the ground. And that was the time that everybody was working hard. And Boaz, being the owner of the field, he had to be there, maybe with a few other servants. So they virtually would sleep there in the field, in the threshing floor. They would sleep there, they work there, they eat there in that particular season of the time. So it was not a party at all. He would be working very tired, and he just ate something, and they just sleep there. And Naomi knew well, now that's the time. You go, Ruth, go and find this guy, Boaz. And the third request, in verse 3, now wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in the best clothes, and go down there. What is that? That is a marriage proposal. That's the sign of when mourning for the dead is over. Now you can put on your new clothes, put on perfume, and find this guy. Now this is a bit hard for us Chinese to kind of imagine that, right? Just tell your daughter, do that, okay? Do that, find your man, find a man. No, I don't think no dads would do that. No mother-in-laws would do that. But that's the Jewish culture. It was perfectly acceptable, all right? So that was the request. And go uncover his feet. Whoa, that's even worse, right? But we'll find out what that was, all right? So for Naomi, this kind of request, it was a very practical, it was a very, a thing that anyone would request for, to find resources for life. For us, studies, relationships, whether we buy houses, we migrate. Well, lots of us actually migrated to Aussie. I don't know why they go to Aussie, but it seems to be working okay for them. But, you know, these are the things, young people, we think, right? And just don't think it for ourselves. Pray to God and ask, what is His guidance for us? Because in these sort of decisions, it could impact much in God's kingdom. Whether we stay here, we go to Aussie, whether we work, what kind of career we're going to have, pray, ask God, what do you want me to do? I remember when Mom came over to New Zealand, 1962, all right, 60-something years now. They had to come, she had to come, because in China at that time was very poor. The situation was pretty bad, and I'm the ninth son, right? But I had 4 brothers and sisters, all died due to health, not enough to eat, and it was chaotic in China. So she had to come. But little that she knew, she came over, struggled hard, and but she came. She was able to know Jesus, and actually, I was the rebellious son, right? And but somehow the miracle was God has united me and Mom together, and we both became Christians, and we go both baptized on the same day in Auckland Chinese Baptist Church. And little that she knew, and the whole the extended families now, we have about 50 all. 25 of us are Christians, committed Christians. Will be pretty impossible in China. You know what I mean? So all these practical stuff, mundane stuff, we placed it before the Lord, that the Lord would direct and would become a blessing. It will become blessings to others and become, in His kingdom, His name will be honored. So place every request to the Lord and ask Him to guide and to direct. And the next thing, Ruth's reaction. It was not just reaction, it came with an action. Ruth said, I will do whatever you say. But in verse 6, so she went down. You know, she did not just say, oh yeah, that's fine, it's good. But she acted. She was told what she was said. She did what she was told. So she went down. Now imagine a single girl going down to this place. All right. Firstly, she was a Moabite girl. She was not a Jewish girl. And secondly, she was a girl. To go to a place that no girls were permitted, in verse 14 says that. And thirdly, this Boaz, okay, he was kind, but would she accept my proposal? It was a clear proposal, a marriage proposal for the Jews, right? I believe in the first few hours, Ruth was not sleeping at all. Her heart would be thumping, thumping, thumping. What's going to happen? What if she got rejected? What if people found out? And how will I end up? But Ruth reacted and acted in faith and trust. Now, I think Naomi placed a great influence upon Ruth. It was not a blind faith. That faith is somehow built on relationship. All these years with Naomi how she responded in crisis, how she would place God in her life. Just how Ruth would cling on to her to come back to Palestine, right? That was a pretty close relationship. And that relationship reflected much on how Ruth would have acted in faith in this situation here. And she just went, and Jesus, by faith, she was just acted according to her mother-in-law, and in trust, and here she was. I think in life, there are situations that we have to work out our faith, not just hearing about it, but acting it out. It's challenging, right? Stepping into something or somewhere you've never been to. Like the first time, remember when we stepped out in faith to respond to Jesus' call to become Christians. How long ago was that? But then, every step of the way as we follow Jesus, there's always these challenges of faith that we need to come and experience. Now, she says something like, "Spread out the corner of your garment over me, since you are my guardian redeemer of our family." Now, what was that? Now, that's something the Jewish people would know very well. The garment over me, the corner of your garment over me, that is really covering. Okay, actually, it's the same word as in Ezekiel 16, verse 8. Okay, later I passed. That's God's response to Israel. How he loved them, how he loved Israel, how he cared for them, and that in verse 8 it said, "Later I passed by, and when I looked at you and saw you were old enough for love, I spread the corner of my garment over you and cover your nakedness." That's the same word that is used here. Place the corner of your garment over me. That's the marriage relationship. You cover me, protect me, right? It's an illustration used as a metaphor taken for like the chickens was coming under the wings of their mothers, and they may be saved from the birds of prey. So Ruth knew well when she said that, and Boaz knew as well what the request was. For Ruth, she couldn't see as far. She just had to do what she was told, and she did it by faith. I believe all of us need to exercise these kind of faith. Are there any things God may be challenging us to act out in faith? Maybe taking some sort of ministry that you never had thought about, going for a mission trip, when others think you may not be suitable. But do listen to advices from pastors and leaders. Maybe, but something that's always, if I kind of suss them out already, that's not faith. It's something that I'm not 100% certain. I need God. By faith, I step out. That is something we probably need to exercise. This is what Ruth was experiencing. Okay? And thirdly, Boaz's recognition. Now, all very well if Naomi requested and Ruth reacted, all right. But if Boaz did not recognize, that wouldn't work. And look, Boaz's answer was, I will do for you all you ask. But there is someone in between. There was a guardian, redeemer, a closer relative, closer than me. All right? If he's not willing, we'll see tomorrow. If he's not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Now, he has given the full assurance to Ruth at that time. When I first read book of Ruth, I thought, Boaz, wow, if a young girl approached to you, come on, you got to say yes. As a male, as a man, wow. I mean, in 廣東話 I say 你反應啦, you know. But when I look closer and I study harder, and I knew it was not the case. Really, when we look at the situation, Boaz actually was significantly older. He was a reputed man. All right, my daughter, twice my daughter. Although daughter can be a generic term, but really he was older, and because he was a very reputed guy in the community. And the author of the book of Ruth really wanted to stress that. It was nothing immoral. It was nothing stepped across the line, okay? And he was actually a guy who would fulfill and would do the law of the Lord in those chaotic, messy times. Remember what kind of period of times when the book of Ruth was written? It was a time of judges. What was the description of the time of judges? There was no king. Everybody did what's right in their eyes. Don't take for granted everybody would follow the Ten Commandments or the Torah. The fact that Boaz was willing to let people to glean in his field. Not everybody at the time would do that. And he was the one who was following the law of the Lord. He was a righteous man. He was a kind man. But was he willing? Only he would know. Did he like Ruth? Maybe. Was he married? Didn't say. Maybe some scholars said he was married because at that age, he would have been married, but perhaps his wife died. But he thought it was pretty okay now, you know. There's no need for me to, because marrying someone's husband, marrying a woman whose husband has died, you actually have to buy all the stuffs. And the son was given to that. The son was born. The first son has to be in the name of the woman's deceased husband, not you. So not everybody would want to do that. As it was something that it takes a lot of courage, a lot of humility, a lot of selflessness to do that. And Boaz was willing to do so. Maybe in our lives, God would challenge us with something that pretty unusual. Maybe just out of our ordinary responsibilities. How would we respond? For leaders who serve in the church, years and years and years, and not much, perhaps not much rewards in this earth. And we do a lot of stuff in the name of the Lord. May not get too many applauses. Are we willing, for the sake of the Lord, to continue to do so. Jesus said, when we care for the sick, when we feed the poor, when we visit the one in prison, we do it to the Lord. I think there's something that's this extra responsibilities. Walking the second mile is the mark of Christians who are willing to place our lives to God. And we're willing to let Him to help us to fulfill His will. It's an ordinary life, but we live in an extraordinary level. I think this is a challenge for us today. To end, I'll give my testimony. As I said, something wrong here, but that's fine. But that was my mom. You couldn't see. That was my mom. She actually, Dr. Franken, you will know, she was in the Sylvia Park home, right? And she died 3 years ago, and 104 actually. She came to New Zealand 1962. Hard life, but she had her own plan for all her children. Okay, everybody was like running a business. We were actually in the food business, or me as well. But little she knew that God had another idea for me, and I was told to. I actually got inspired from God and to leave the business and to study something in theology or something. But I was not studying well, so I didn't know what to do. So somehow we left Dunedin and we came. I studied in lay law. It was Bible College in New Zealand at the time. And after I finished, and God inspired me to go to Hong Kong for formal theological studies. And that was my turn for my unwillingness, all right? But somehow I submitted as well. And then when I had 15 years in Hong Kong, the Lord called me back. And it was my time. It was my turn. I said, no, I'm fully adjusted in Hong Kong. I don't want to come back to New Zealand. Especially my wife, Janice, all right? This is a little carrot, someone you know. Yeah. But somehow, to cut the story short, it was a lot of faith, trusting, submission, action to make today possible. And it's just like the story. A lot of stuff that's beyond human rational kind of thinking. There's a lot of divine guidances, a lot of trust and responses. I wonder if my mom did not permit me to go to Bible college, and I wonder I did not want to go back to Hong Kong, and I wondered that I did not submit to God to come back to New Zealand. What will I be? Where will I be today? What will I be doing today? I don't think God would kind of strike me with a lightning or turn me into a salt pillar. But I would not be walking in this world. I would not be as happy. I would not be as fulfilling. So let me challenge you, or not me, but let the Bible challenge us. How do we perceive our daily, ordinary concerns? What significance they have in God's sight? Everything in our lives has significances. And how do we exercise trust and obey in the challenging situations? And what are some of the opportunities in life that we can exercise graciousness to others? Let's pray. Father, I just want to pray that your word will penetrate in our hearts and minds and our souls and direct us in the ways that you want us to go. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.